Imagine a vast, unforgiving expanse of dark water. For decades, this very specific stretch of the North Atlantic Ocean has haunted our imaginations and stoked our deepest fears. We're talking about massive ships slipping silently beneath the waves, aircraft just vanishing from radar screens on perfectly clear sunny days, entire crews wiped from existence, leaving behind no wreckage, no distress signals, and absolutely no answers. Well, today in this explainer, we're stepping right into the shadows of one of the world's most terrifying maritime enigmas. We're looking at the Bermuda Triangle. Picture this. The year is 1918. An unimaginable tragedy has just struck the United States Navy, and it leads President Woodrow Wilson to make this incredibly chilling statement. Only God and the sea know what happened to the great ship. He was talking about the USS Cyclops. This was a massive, heavily armed vessel that simply ceased to exist while sailing through this infamous patch of water. I mean, think about it. When the commander-in-chief openly admits that only God and the sea hold the answers, you know you're dealing with something that totally defies a simple explanation. Section 1. The Devil's Triangle. 500,000 square miles of mystery. Before we really get into the disappearances, we need to set the scene of the crime. So, where exactly are we talking about? The Bermuda Triangle is loosely defined by 3 points. You start down at the southeastern tip of Florida, right in Miami. From there, you draw a line out into the deep Atlantic over to the island of Bermuda. Bring that line south to Puerto Rico, and finally connect it right back to Miami. Those 3 vertices lock together to form this legendary, invisible boundary over the western part of the North Atlantic. 500,000. That is 500,000 square miles of deep, unpredictable, and historically lethal ocean. Just let that scale sink in for a second. It's an area of water so unbelievably vast that searching for a lost aircraft down there is literally like looking for a needle in a global haystack. Moving into Section 2, Vanished Without a Trace. Centuries of unexplained events. You see, while our modern obsession with this region really took off in the 20th century, the eerie case files of this ocean actually go back hundreds of years. There is this dark, continuous pattern of dread in these waters. It starts all the way back in 1492, jumps forward to the grim tragedy of the USS Cyclops in 1918, and then lands on the most famous disappearance of them all, the terrifying loss of Flight 19 in 1945. Let's actually break these down because the details are pretty unsettling. Okay, so the very first European to sail through this area experienced something completely bizarre. Christopher Columbus, on his first voyage to the New World, officially logged seeing a massive fireball crash right into the sea. Now, historians today think he probably saw a meteor, but the more disturbing part, he reported wildly erratic compass readings. And interestingly enough, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, there's actual evidence that the Bermuda Triangle is one of the very few places on Earth where a magnetic compass sometimes points to true north instead of magnetic north. So right from the start, the environment was messing with human navigation. Fast forward a few centuries to March 1918, over 300 men. That is the devastating human toll of the USS Cyclops. And guys, this wasn't some tiny fishing boat that got tossed in a storm. This was a 542-foot-long Navy cargo ship hauling 10,000 tons of manganese ore. It vanished somewhere between Barbados and the Chesapeake Bay. They had the technology, yet they never sent out a single SOS call. No wreckage was ever found. Oh, and in a horrifying twist, 2 of her sister ships vanished along nearly the exact same route in 1941. And then comes December 1945. This is the event that truly cemented the legend. 5 Navy bombers known as Flight 19 took off from Fort Lauderdale for a routine practice run. Suddenly, the squadron leaders' compasses began to malfunction. 14 men flew aimlessly over the ocean until their planes simply ran out of gas, forcing them to ditch into the sea. But it gets worse. A rescue plane carrying a 13-man crew launched to go find them, and they vanished too. After weeks of desperate searching turned up nothing, the official Navy report contained this absolutely haunting conclusion. It was as if they had flown to Mars. When military planes and massive steel cargo ships just vanish into thin air, it really messes with us. Our minds struggle to comprehend that kind of void. We're desperate for answers. So it naturally forces the question. Are we dealing with actual supernatural forces here? Or is the cold, dark truth simply hidden in the water? Which brings us to Section 3, Aliens, Atlantis, and Anomalies. The Fringe Theories. You know how it is. When official explanations fail to satisfy the public's grief and curiosity, the paranormal writers step right in. In 1964, author Vincent Gaddis was the one who actually coined the terrifying name Bermuda Triangle. 10 years later, Charles Berlitz stoked the fire with a massive bestseller. And what followed was a total explosion of supernatural mythology. Suddenly, people were blaming the disappearances on everything from extraterrestrials abducting humans to the mythical lost continent of Atlantis pulling ships under. You had theories of time warps, reverse gravity fields, alternate dimensions, and yes, even ancient sea monsters flooded into pop culture. All right, Section 4, the cold, hard science. Investigating the environment. Because a good investigator doesn't stop at ghosts and aliens, right? We need to look at the actual physical environment of these waters, pulling straight from the archives of NOAA and the United States Coast Guard. There is a huge contrast here between sensational myth and environmental reality. Sure, the sensational myths are what sell books and movie tickets, but honestly, the brutal, undeniable reality of the Earth's environment is far more terrifying. The ocean doesn't need aliens to be deadly. It's perfectly capable of destroying vessels all on its own. Take this incredibly fascinating scientific theory, for example, oceanic flatulence. I know, it sounds a little funny, but the reality is grim. This refers to massive pockets of methane gas that suddenly erupt from deep ocean sediments. If a ship happens to be cruising right over one of these massive gas bubbles when it hits the surface, the density of the water just plummets. The ship instantly loses its buoyancy and can sink to the bottom of the ocean in seconds. Literally, way before anyone could ever tap out an SOS. And when you review the official hazard data, it reveals a harsh truth. This 500,000 square mile zone is basically a perfect storm of natural dangers. First off, a huge chunk of Atlantic tropical storms and massive hurricanes pass directly through here. Then you've got the Gulf Stream, a powerful ocean current that creates incredibly rapid, violent changes in the weather. Toss in the Caribbean Sea's geography, which is full of shallow, treacherous reefs that can easily tear open a ship's hull. Combine all of that with those intermittent magnetic compass anomalies we talked about earlier, and you've got a recipe for absolute disaster. No sea monsters required. Section 5, the official verdict. Closing the case. So, how do the highest maritime authorities actually close the book on the Devil's Triangle? Well, here's the kicker. Officially speaking, it doesn't exist. The United States government, specifically the U.S. Board of Geographic Names, does not even recognize the Bermuda Triangle as a real place. They don't draw boundaries for it on any official maps, and they don't even keep a file on the area. From an administrative standpoint, it's just a ghost story. The United States Coast Guard takes an even firmer stance on this. Their official review of aircraft and vessel losses over the decades basically says there are zero supernatural explanations for these disasters. Their experience points entirely to the brutal forces of nature and, well, simple human error. As they put it, no extraordinary factors have ever been identified. The ocean itself is a deadly enough adversary without us inventing new ones. And if you want the absolute unromantic truth, you just have to look at the cold, hard math of the insurance industry. Lloyd's of London, who are leaders in maritime insurance, don't view the Bermuda Triangle as an exceptionally hazardous place. They don't charge higher premiums for ships sailing through it. Statistically speaking, there's no evidence that mysterious disappearances happen here any more frequently than in any other large, well-traveled area of the global ocean. Blaming every disappearance in the triangle on one single cause is basically like trying to find one single cause for every car crash in Arizona. It just doesn't work like that. So the facts, the data, and the experts all point to the same conclusion. The Bermuda Triangle is a myth. It's a geographical coincidence compounded by harsh weather, human error, and the sheer, unyielding power of the sea. And yet, the legend survives. It still thrives. Why? Because there's a part of the human psyche that kind of wants the map to have monsters on it. It forces us to ask, will we ever let science completely override our deep love for a dark, unsolved mystery? That is a question I'll leave for you to ponder long after this explainer ends. Thanks so much for watching. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.